We're going to go now to our second guest on this subject. Dr Sangeet Bhullar is the Executive Director of Wise Kids. Hello, Doctor.
Hello.
Hi. So how best do you think we can protect children from this kind of harmful content online?
I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Mary is saying. And I think one of the big things is this digital space is so pervasive. And I'm a huge believer in sort of helping young people recognize what are healthy relationships, what are not healthy relationships from early on. So this idea of being digitally literate for that digital world, and that covers a whole gamut of things, including healthy relationships, but things like fake news and a whole bunch of inappropriate interactions where they might be exploited. But I think when it comes to things like pornography, I think it really falls in the remit of healthy relationships and understanding that children today need to be involved in earlier discussion with their parents, because I think the world is so pervasive. As Mary says, children can have access to it. But I think parents can do quite a lot to help children lead balanced lives, to model values that they themselves, value themselves, the parents themselves find important. And to recognize that, should they, in a discussion about pornography, that what you see people are being paid to produce, that's not necessarily what a normal relationship looks like. And unpacking some of that. So it is important to be involved. I think that's a big one. And I think, as to your question about limiting this, absolutely. I think this is the role of government to try and make sure that companies are more accountable. But I think the genie is also out of the bottle. And I think it's not either or. I think the government needs to act. And I think age verification is one of the big things in that. But I think it's also about what can we do now as a parent. I've got an 8-year-old, 9-year-old. Well, what I want them to know is if somebody starts to send them messages that are sexualized, messages to do inappropriate things, that children actually recognize that that's inappropriate. So I think from a younger age, we need sex and relationship education. And I think that is going to be quite helpful, really, in this bigger picture of, society being able to access all sorts of good and not so good stuff.
I think, thank you. I think I definitely agree with you. There is obviously a big role for parents to play in educating their children properly. My only concern is that relies on the parents being responsible enough. And obviously there are lots of kids whose parents don't have the time or the inclination to bother with this kind of thing, really, let's be honest. So what happens to them? Are they just left at the mercy of these market forces unless, the government actually...
So sex and relationship and sex education is actually now compulsory in schools in England and Wales. And I think that is a massive thing forward now, So schools actually have a duty. From primary school, there's relationship education. From secondary school, there's sex education. And that is in part to recognize the changing society we are living in, and the fact that today children are being exposed to far more adult themes, whether through VR games, through pornography, a whole bunch of things. So I think, the whole idea of education, providing that base level is key. Because as you say, so many parents are uncomfortable. There are cultural issues around these themes as well, and some families are just not comfortable talking about it. But from my perspective, when I run workshops for parents, I talk about the fact that these are life skills. It's not a digital issue per se, but of course digital is providing this a whole bunch of harms that we're not necessarily prepared for.
Okay.
So therefore,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Dr Sangeet Bhullar and to Mary Sharp. I just don't think children this young need phones at all. But what do you think? Call me on 0345 6060 973 or text 84850. The time is now 5:16.